Hey everyone, this is Grace Katanko, Program Manager at Prevention Institute. Recently, I got a chance to catch up with Agustin Vega, who is the coordinator of Project MILPA, which is a participant of the People, Parks, and Power Initiative, or P3 for short. Recently, we both went to a learning exchange visit with other P3 partners in New York to visit an organization in South Bronx. And other folks were there too from Springfield, Ohio, as well as San Juan, Puerto Rico. And so the conversation that you're going to be hearing is us at the airport waiting for our flight to New York. But before we head to that conversation, just some context for Project MILPA. MILPA stands for Misión, Independencia, Logrando Poder y Aprendizaje, which in English is Mission, Independence, Achievement, Power, and Learning. But MILPA is also the word for a traditional indigenous American agricultural system that's often called Three Sisters. So three plants of corn, beans, and squash that grow together, intertwined and in synergy. And it's just a sustainable agricultural practice that keeps the soil healthy. And it's just such a beautiful representation really of what Project MILPA's mission is which is to advance farm worker-led regenerative agricultural cooperatives in Ventura County through systemic policy change as well as a demonstration project. And we'll get to hear a little bit about that as we chat with Agustin. And so without anything else further, I'm gonna let you all hear from him yourself.
Okay.
All right. Can you share a bit about who you are and what called you into this work?
Yeah, my name is Agustin Vega. I am the project coordinator for Project MILPA, which is a coalition project between three organizations: the Central Coast Alliance United for a Sustainable Economy, also known as CAUSE, the Mixteco Indígena Community Organizing Project, also known as MICOP, and Líderes Campesinas. Mm-hmm. And the project is creating a worker-owned cooperative in Ventura County with farm workers, helping them transition from worker to owner in a shared ownership business model. Yeah, it's been a long journey to get here. I first was called into doing tenants' rights and workers' rights, and in both of those areas, I was trying to figure out what other things we could do to support tenants and workers. A lot of the work we were doing was supporting folks in the immediate need, whether that be with eviction defense or habitability issues or discrimination cases. And I was trying to figure out what the next step is, and I think, or an additional step. And I think another important part of workers' rights is worker ownership, allowing people to have autonomy over the decisions that affect them in the workplace. So I was doing workers' rights with farm workers in Oregon. My dad's side of the family were farm workers, and I just kind of got pulled into that area, and I really enjoyed it. And I slowly became more involved with shared ownership structures and trying to get more into working with cooperatives and land trusts. And then this position popped up, and it was exactly kind of where I wanted to be at. And they took a chance on me, and I appreciate it, and I'm here now.
Great. Yeah, we're glad to have you. I'm in that journey that you kind of described just now. Was it pretty apparent to you early on the connection between workers' rights, labor rights, and now you're pretty much working in land justice issues? What does it look like in the middle of that Venn diagram?
Yeah, and I think in particular, my understanding comes from a agricultural workers perspective, and we would help workers, and they would with a legal issue, and then they would come back with the same type of issue but with a different employer. And I was trying to figure out how we could support a systems change instead of just an individual change.
Yeah.
And I kind of came to the conclusion that workers need to own their own businesses, and they also need to own the land that they work. And I think that the idea of community ownership of businesses and land is not something that is usually brought to people's attention in these kind of spaces that we're working. It's more like, let's defend folks in the current system that we have. And so I think with agricultural workers, one of the biggest barriers to having your own business is access to land. And how do we help workers gain that, as well as having more community ownership over the green spaces and the ag land in our communities? So I think that's kind of where our project falls in that Venn diagram, is specifically working ag lands that are under community ownership.
Prevention Institute, we are a public health nonprofit, and so a lot of people are probably like wondering, what is a public health organization doing in like parks and green space work and like land justice? How do you think access to land in this way will transform the lives of people that you work with and the people who lead this type of work with you?
That's a really good question. I think personally the way I look at it is, like I mentioned earlier, my father's side of the family were farm workers, and they were farm workers in Mexico too. And prior to that, they actually owned their own land, and they grew and they sold agricultural products. And then every place that they moved, they also had their own garden. Even now, my aunts and uncles have a shared piece of land that they grow on. And the experience, from what I've seen, of growing your own food under your own direction is very different than the corporate ag system that we have, that tells you oftentimes that you got to keep working and working and work, and your labor is being extracted from your body. And I think those two different environments provide very different effects on your mental health. Gardens themselves also just provide a lot of mental health, suicide reduction, places where communities can come and gather. That space is not a corporate space. And so I think that's potentially one answer to that question.
Yeah. And I think connected to that, I know that, in working with MILPA and CAUSE for the last couple of years now, I know that one of the models that you're looking into is potential partnership with conservation land trusts and conservation organizations. How do you think that relates to agriculture? Because I know that for a lot of folks, they see conservation and environmental as totally separate from what agricultural land is supposed to be used for. But how does MILPA potentially see that sort of partnership and synergy between those two things?
I think we're trying to figure that out right now. Okay. We've been doing some research into different models to have community ownership, such as land trusts, such as community land trusts and conservation land trusts. And what we've kind of seen is that the community land trusts are more based in residential ownership, apartments, single family homes, things like that. And the conservation land trusts are more, they may not always be values aligned. Yeah. And so we're trying to find that space that's in between. And I think it's possible. I think we're trying to figure that out. As a side note, also about the public health implications of owning your own land, the workers that are involved, or the leaders that are involved in our project, come from the 3 different coalition organizations, and they come already doing advocacy work in those organizations. And a lot of that is around unemployment benefits, health benefits, reduced pesticide exposure and use. So folks are also thinking about the health implications of being able to own your own land and work your own business. A lot of folks want a space that is free from pesticide use, for both the benefit of themselves, for children, for folks in older generations. So just wanted to add that note too.
What would you think success would look like looking into the future, like 7 generations from now?
7 generations is a long time.
Yeah, 7 generations. It takes that long sometimes.
I think that what success with this project looks like is we're able to change the agricultural industry in the system itself, that we're able to have businesses that are owned by the workers, that are doing regenerative and sustainable ag, so feeding the community with healthy foods, working in a space that is a healthy space as well, having more access to ag lands, and then also what that leads to is more access to green space for folks to be able to come into. I think that is what success looks like. It's removing people from the current extractive industrial kind of ag system and creating a space where people can grow outside of that. Because for a really long time, since basically the beginning of the country, the ag system has exploited black and brown labor, and it continues to do so. So I think that success looks like creating an alternative pathway to that.
Yeah. Okay, so from the long term, what does, what are you all working towards in maybe like the next 1 or 2 years? And I guess this is just a space for you to tell us what you want the world to know about MILPA and CAUSE and MyCop and Líderes Campesinas. So, the floor is yours.
Ooh, what are we working on?
Yeah.
Well, our main goal right now is getting the business, the worker-owned cooperative, up and running and finding land. So this year we are working on finishing up a feasibility study, working on a business plan, working on policies and bylaws to incorporate the business. We're working on a training academy to help workers get training in regenerative sustainable ag, cooperative governance, and business management schools to help folks transition from worker to owner. And then we're working on that land piece of finding land that we can either currently rent at first or potentially buy and turn into community ownership. So those are the main things that we're working on. We're hoping to start farming by next year.
Nice.
So that's a goal that we have in our mind every time that we meet. Yeah, we spent this year participating with the Agricultural Land Equity Task Force, which is a task force in the state of California that was given the task of creating recommendations to help underserved and first-time farmers have equitable access to land. And one of the recommendations that they came out with aligned with one of the recommendations that the leaders saw as a long-term policy goal to help with the project, and that is a first opportunity to purchase agricultural act, also sometimes known as a first right of refusal. I think part of the way that I envision or see access to land is that there's kind of the initial point where you can purchase the land. There is kind of a intermediate point of having somebody that could potentially purchase land and sell it to an organization such as a land bank. And then there's the organization that can actually purchase and hold the piece of land. So this particular policy would help us get in front of the purchase part, in front of the first part. I think with other CLTs or housing cooperatives, that's often a really hard point, is to try to get in front of the sale because they can happen fast. And oftentimes you need to be already kind of organized and ready to mobilize for that action happens. So this policy that we've been looking at would be hopefully creating a coalition of folks that are interested in this act, and then eventually creating some type of model ordinance. So yes, one of the policy goals we're looking towards.
Right. So how can people support this type of work, or even learn more about this type of work if they wanted to get involved or more educated?
We have recently created a blog page with our first blog post being helped along by P3, so thank you.
Yeah.
That's something out there in the world from us.
Yeah.
So if folks want to, they can access our blog page. We do a lot of our Instagram posting through the 3 organizations. And I think those are kind of the 2 main ways to tap in right now. We're still building out our media and our communications, but
which we will link for our audiences.
Sweet. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Agustin, for your time, and we hope to hear more from you in the
Sweet.
future.
Thank you, Grace. Appreciate it.
Again, that was Agustin Vega, coordinator for Project MILPA. And if you would like to follow any of the 3 organizations on social media, they can be found at Cause 805, MICOP 805, that's MICOP 805, and Líderes Campesinas. So you can search them on social media through those usernames. And like, follow, subscribe Prevention Institute as well if you'd like to learn more about the other really wonderful organizations who are also a part of the People, Parks, and Power initiative. Please visit our website, learn more about them, get involved. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Until next time.